This program is brought to you by Pussy Magnets.
Put a midge on your friend with a pussy magnet.
Welcome, my lovely lumps. Or should I say lovely labs? I'm so thrilled to have you here in the Labia Lounge. We're going to yarn about all things sexuality, womanhood, relationships, intimacy, holistic health, and everything in between. Your legs. Ooh, can't help myself. Anyway, we're going to have vag loads of real chats with real people about real shit. So buckle up, you're about to receive the sex ed that you never had and have a bloody good laugh while you're at it. Before we dive in, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. It's an absolute privilege to be living and creating dope podcast content in Naarm, and I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, if you're ready, let's flap and do this. Oh my God, is there such thing as too many vagina jokes in the one intro? Whatever, it's my podcast. I'm leaving it in.
Don't panic, you're not broken. Your sex education was a piece of shit. Get your flaps out and pull up a couch. It's the Labia Lounge.
Hey gang, just before we jump into this episode, I wanted to offer you an opportunity to access my new mini course for free before I start charging for it in future. It's for people with vulvas and it's quick to complete. It's all about demystifying the female body and pleasure anatomy and getting some basic fundamentals to understand your body better. It's called Pussy Pleasure Secrets, Your Roadmap to Bedroom Bliss. You can grab it on the freebies page of my website or in the show notes. It's a great little free resource to kind of dip your toe in or act as a bit of a taster for my work. So if you've ever been curious about this sort of thing and you just don't know where to start, or you want a really quick, easy, accessible, non-threatening way to get the ball rolling and start working on this stuff, this is a great place to start. Hey, my labial love bugs. Thanks for joining us for this super juicy episode where we'll be talking about how to have the most epic sex for the rest of your life with intimacy. I'll say that again. Intimacy expert to millions, Susan Bratton. Susan is a champion and advocate for all those who desire intimacy and passion their whole life long. She's created hundreds of techniques that transform having sex into making love and is the world's most respected sexual biohacker. Susan is co-founder and CEO of Personal Life Media, Inc., a publisher of the Better Love brand of heart-connected lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills and sexual regenerative therapies, as well as The 20, a manufacturer of organic and botanical supplements that enhance sexual vitality. She's a best-selling author and publisher of 44 books and programs, hot damn, and frequently appears on ABC, CBS, the CW, and NBC. Wowza, that is some big generator energy. Welcome, Susan. Pull up a clit cushion, make yourself comfy.
My clit's so big, I don't need a cushion. The Labia Lounge is pretty much the perfect show for me, Freya. You mentioned that I had done sexual biohacking, and I don't think a lot of people even know what that is, but just to fill your listeners in on what that is, it's like female enhancement almost. There's sexual regenerative therapies, which are like reversing vaginal atrophy and loss of lubrication and incontinence and diminishment of orgasmic intensity. But there's also taking it to the next level and making what you have even better. And one of the things that I've done is I've done a lot of PRP, platelet-rich plasma injections into my clitoris. And recently I went in, I harvested my stem cells last year to try to repair my torn ACLs and MCLs from a skiing accident. And so I talked to my stem cell doctor and I was like, what do you think about injecting those into my clit? And he's like, Susie, I'll do it. I'll put them anywhere you want. And so I just had my own stem cells harvested and injected into my clitoral structures, my clitoral, urethral, and perineal structures, all the erectile tissue of my female anatomy. And so my clit is actually bigger than it's ever been. It's like a little clit boner. It's like I've got a little dick down there. And that really has made my orgasms even more intense. And it's just a kind of a weirdo thing because biohackers like to take themselves and their bodies, their longevity, their anti-aging to the highest level they possibly can. Like a lot of biohackers, like my friend Dave Asprey, he wants to live to be 180 years old. I'm not sure that that's my particular goal, but my particular goal is certainly to go down fucking, right? Like to have really great sex till the day I draw my dying breath, Freya. And how am I going to do that with a shriveled little clit? I can't do that. So I need, a juicy plum, not a dried up raisin down there. And since we have as much erectile tissue in our genital structures as our male-bodied partners do in their penile structure, but nobody's friggin' talking about that. Everybody's talking about the dude's ED, but what about the lady's ED? I mean, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And it shrinks, it atrophies. And so, no, does the average person need to go have their doctor inject their endogenous stem cells into their clitoris? They do not. But I like to fuck around with that stuff and just see what it's like, just to witness what the possibilities are. And so my labia, I've also done wing lifts on them since we're, lounging around on our labias and our clits today. I've also done the wing lifts just because my girlfriend literally does that for a living. And she was like, do you want me to give you one? And I'm like, of course I do. And
there's a wing lift.
It's PRP and hyaluronic acid into the labial tissue to kind of like plump it up. The outer labia and the inner labia. You can do both. And I was like, sure, stick that shit in there. Let me see what it looks like. It fades after a while, but it was an interesting experience. I'll tell you, my labia are massively orgasmic, not just my clitoral structure. I've really activated all that tissue. And
has that ever been the platelet being injected into your clitoris? That just sounded like an idea that you had and your surgeon, I don't know, was willing to do it. Is that something that's been done, or are you the first to try something like that?
No, they're called O shots here in the U.S. O shots and P shots. O shots standing for orgasm shot. And Dr. Charles Runnels, he kind of quote unquote invented it. He was doing PRP for like joint pain and things like that. And he was like, I wonder if I stick this in a dick, what'll happen?
Because I was literally thinking, oh, sorry, go on.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was literally thinking, like, when I was kind of doing a bit of research on you and prepping for this episode, I was like, this bitch is like the female version of Dave Asprey. Like, oh my God. Like, because, I used to be big into all the biohacking podcasts and listen to a lot of Dave Asprey for years and a lot of Luke Story. And I'm not super up with it anymore. I kind of got a bit oversaturated with all that stuff. And I was like, most of it is so completely inaccessible to the average layman anyway. And it was getting so sciencey and hectic and, it kind of like lost its appeal to me a little bit, but it's always been so fascinating. But I think I've got Dave's like book Game Changers, and definitely remember him talking about injecting some things into his dick and seeing how that kind of changed things. So that's hilarious that you guys are friends.
Yeah, very good friends. I was a keynote at his last year's event, and I did sexual biohacking, and I did like a fireside chat with Dave, and I brought all my toys and I walked him through everything. Actually, there's a really good, I was on his podcast. There's a really good vidcast when I was on Dave's, Human Upgrade show, where I show, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'd actually like to know more about sexual biohacking. I want to know what I can do with my dick and my clit. There's a good episode I did with him where you can watch the video and I show you all the stuff I use, vacuum erection devices, vulva pumps, shots, my Foria CBD botanical oils, like all the different things that I have found, including this notion of orgasmic cross training, where what I'm really trying to do is move women from I'm having trouble having an orgasm to, oh shit, I can come 10 different ways now. And really what people still think about an orgasm is this kind of 1960s old Masters and Johnson, we climb up, we peak, and we have a refractory period. And women think that's like how they're supposed to come too. And it's not at all. And men think they have to orgasm from ejaculation. They don't, there's just a lot of very outdated constructs around orgasm. And so I like to explain to people the 20 plus kinds of orgasms that the body can have. And then all the different types of sex toys, which I like to call sex tools, that people can use to activate the brain to genital connection so that your brain, your biggest sex organ, can be like, oh, that feels good. And also I think really transforming, we were talking before we started recording about how when we help people, you and I both, when we help people access and expand their sexuality and go through a sexual awakening, a lot of times what we're doing is we're kind of mopping cleanup from the shame and all of the trauma that's happened to people. Yeah. And we take that on and try to move people through that to accessing their pleasure. And when you're starting to kind of activate your yoni, you really do have to transform shame and pain and numbness into feeling and then feeling pleasure. There's a definite journey that the tissue takes with your brain and the kind of neural connections that are required. So, but it happens. One of the things I love now, I'm not a trauma healer. That's not my area. What I do is I do passionate lovemaking techniques. I teach people how to have orgasmic intercourse and orgasmic oral. And I basically like to teach people how to come really well in lots of ways, and to just like basically be this wellspring with orgasms just flowing out, which is our natural state before it goes into optimizing full of shame. Exactly. And, but it's true that you do have to move through trauma. But one of the great things about trauma healing is that it can be very quick. A lot of it is very quick. It's just, you have to address it. It's like you have to clean the wound and fix the wound, and then the wound heals and you go on. It doesn't stay with you forever, except for about 20% of people. They really have a hard time moving through trauma. And I think a lot of it has to do with things like our dopamine and serotonin pathways and how we're wired. Because some people, they relive trauma like it's a fresh cut every single time they think of it. And other people can be like, no, I put that shit behind me. I'm good to go,
I feel like I see this other category of people that don't get over the trauma really quickly, but also don't feel it like a fresh cut, but they've just managed to suppress it and shove it down and store it in the tissues and numb themselves. And that is a very common block to pleasure and orgasm that I see. And so they're in this kind of middle, like limbo space where, they're kind of not really able to access their full kind of pleasure potential because of like a lack of embodiment and a lack of safety in the body and an ability to be connected to the body, because the body isn't comfortable or safe, because it is the storage place for the trauma that they're not really able to integrate or deal with. So, but that's kind of another thing, like we were speaking about before we jumped on the recording. Sometimes, it seems like with my work, a lot of the time I'm really just trying to help people get from that place to even being able to feel anything or feel or like be able to experience orgasm at all. Whereas you're like really helping people optimize their orgasmic experiences, and like it's that sort of next stage along. They're already like athletes and now you're making them elite athletes, whereas I'm kind of like training the people to become athletes in the first place more commonly. I suppose that's like generally and I think because there's more people in that category that I work with that really just need some help, even dealing with the trauma and getting to a place where they can feel pleasure and feel safety in their body and communicate their needs and all of this sort of stuff. So, it's great because we're sort of helping people at different stages of the journey. And I kind of thought this episode could be because I talk a lot about my side of things, but I was like, all right, well, you're really about like, okay, how can we make this better, bigger and better and more, and also sustainable? Like, I know you talk about like, the process of aging and how to kind of really optimize your sexuality as you grow older. And yeah, I know you've got a lot of experience with this. So maybe firstly, just to like wet everyone's whistles and just provide a bit more like motivational material in case the lure of great sex forevermore wasn't enough. Let's just like hash out some reasons why we might want to have more epic sex. Because there's so many health and like physical health and mental health and relational benefits to having great sex. And yeah, I think it would be really cool to talk about. I mean, and those ones are a little bit more obvious, but then I know that you're a bit of an expert on the biochemical benefits of sexual pleasure and intimacy from like a biohacker perspective and like what it does in our bodies and brains. So maybe if you could just kind of give us a rundown on like why you're so passionate about people having more pleasure and more orgasms and like how that actually helps with anti-aging and with mental health and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of people want that or kind of need that. They need me to tell them the health benefits of sex. And I have some mixed thoughts about that actually. And one of them is like, there are people if you take 100 people, 15 of them are open to being kind of personal growth mindset, learning mindset oriented and interested in their sexuality. And 85% of them are basically not curious, not interested, unable to move through their shame or their pain or their repression or their, religious issues or whatever might have happened to them. So then you've got, okay, the people listening to your show here hanging out on our clit pillows at the Labia Lounge, they're in that 15%. They're like, tell me more. And I like to actually look at the end of the last day of your life. Okay, you're dying today. And a long time ago, you were that person who was like, yeah, I pulled up a clit pillow and went to the Labia Lounge. And I cared about my sexuality. And I realized that it was a lot of learned skills and also overcoming a lot of myths and repression and things like that. And I got through all that and I really started to, be able to know what I wanted and ask for it with my partner. I started to be really good at getting myself off. I started learning how to orgasm in different ways because I realized it's just learned skills and I'm going to learn them. I'm not going to just be that one and done person who struggles to have an orgasm. I'm going to be a massively multi-orgasmic person. I've had great sex in my life. It's really fulfilled me. All the orgasms that I've had and all the closeness that I've had with myself and my partner, the body acceptance that I came to by being surrendered to my pleasure and realizing that I love my imperfections and I'm perfectly fine with them and they don't hold me back from having incredible pleasure. So fuck it. I'm going to stop having body image issues. I'm going to realize that's my estrogen being judgy, which it's here to keep me safe and be like, screw it. I'm just going to fucking love myself. And, I've had incredible lovers in my life. I've had incredible sexual experiences. I've been the person who's been held and touched and pleasured, and that's created incredible hormone cascades of, oxytocin, which has been the antidote to stress in my life. I see other people and I look at them and I think to myself, girl, you need to get fucked. But I don't say anything. I just make sure I get fucked because I know how good it makes me feel about myself. I'm proud of myself for all of the pleasure that I've created. I'm proud of the fact that I've had all of these vascular events and my cardiovascular system has led me to be 97 years old and going strong on the last day of my life. I've had sex right into my 90s. I look better than all of my friends who are 10 and 15 years younger than I am because my skin is nice and my hair is still thicker. And, I just have a spring in my step, and I always have, that I've noticed other people don't. And I can tell the people who haven't, they've taken path B. They've said, oh, I'm too old for sex. And then they've shriveled up and they've wrinkled up and they've gotten grumpy, and they're grumpy grandpas and grumpy grandmas. And I'm not. I'm still happy. I'm still coming. I'm still in joy. I have lived this life up, and I have chewed it up and spit it out in a satisfying way. And that's the person that you can be if all you do is just have the intention to keep going. And when you hit a wall, oh God, I got COVID, or I got whatever, I got sick from something, or I had cancer and I had to have chemo or whatever, I kept working to get myself better. I focused on my health. I noticed every time, every moment when I was getting stronger again. I lived through all the things that were bad that happened to me. I said, nothing is going to keep me down. Nothing is going to keep me from my pleasure and my connection and the birthright that is my humanity, which is my sexuality. And I just kept living and thriving. And so I think that's really the kind of attitude that if that were more acceptable in our culture, that we didn't think that there was anything wrong with old people having hot sex. And the only way we can change that is by being that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm 63 next month, and I'm having the absolute best sex of my life. Absolute best. Nothing can compare to the quality of the sex that I have now. How good it feels, how comfortable I am, how much pleasure I have, how much I can come, how easy it is for me to ask for anything, the easy flow of communication, all the fun shit I do. I mean, I'm constantly doing new stuff. And one of the things that's great is when I say to my partner, hey, I have an idea. They're like, what? Like, it's exciting. I always like to say I'm fun to fuck, because it's always going to be some new thing, whether it's lingerie or a new sex toy or some new, euphoria that I like, or whatever it is. The great thing about sex is that there's always something more. It won't run out on you. It will never forfeit you. And so I guess that's just the perspective is you can be on road A or you can be on road B, and it's really your choice.
I think it's also a privilege thing, though. I do think, having emotional privilege, having slightly less, trauma, having the resources, having the time, energy. I think so many people are in absolute and utter survival mode. That, most of my clients, if I try to give them some homework or things to kind of go and do at home to improve their situation, they'd be lucky if they even have the energy or the time or the space away from their kids or whatever to be able to put energy into that. So, but I guess that's I'm at this end of the spectrum working with the average kind of layman that's in the trenches, just sort of getting by, and you're helping people optimize and take that path A. And I found it interesting when you said when people need to hear about the benefits, you're in two minds about that. And I don't know why, but yeah, my immediate thought was oh yeah, I actually feel that, because I think what sprung to mind for me is people, it's why do we need to know that there's benefits to sex? Why can't we just do it because it feels good and it's enjoyable and it's pleasurable? And I'm okay, yeah, because people, especially women, often don't feel like we deserve pleasure, don't feel like we deserve to have time taken on us and, attention doted on us. And so many people have all of these blockages around, the guilt and the shame that they feel when it comes to being a sexual person or expressing themselves sexually or, engaging in this in a way that feels really empowering and pleasurable to them. There's so many barriers to that. that, you know, you do need to be like, oh, but also like, by the way, it's really good for your brain chemistry and it'll help with your, you know, energy levels, and it's good for your skin and this and that. And then they're like, oh, okay, cool. Because it's almost like we have to convince people why they should do this as like self-care or something like that, because they, you know, we haven't really been conditioned to feel as though, like you said, it is our birthright to have amazing sex, to, you know, quote unquote, indulge in pleasure. The fact that we even feel like it's an indulge kind of deal, you know, or it's, I mean, I hear the word selfish all the time when I'm working with female clients and they're talking about taking too much time or feeling selfish if they're receiving too much. And I'm just like, far out. Like we've really got such a long way to go before more people can be in that category that you just described, that you're in, where they're like absolutely living their best life and completely claiming and owning their pleasure and their sexual expression. So I just wanted to like, you know, everything you said, I'm like, oh my God, how amazing, how inspiring, epic. But then another part of me was like, but that, I just want to caveat that that's not necessarily super possible for all that many people at this point in this world, in our society. And also, you know, it might not be someone's priority if they've got a whole lot of other fires to put out or other, you know, passions and stuff. Like I also have to remember people aren't all sex nerds like me and like you, that are kind of willing to like really put the effort in. Because that's the other thing. It's like this stuff it's a learned skill. It takes practice. It takes like proper commitment and a willing partner or two to really dedicate a good portion of your life to sex and to lovemaking and to connection and intimacy. And sometimes, you know, I work with mostly women, and a lot of the time they're keen, but they don't have a partner that's very willing to dedicate time and to meet them in the middle there. So that's also a bit sad. And yeah, there's limitations. So I just wanted to say that in case anyone was hearing it going, oh man, like that's not me at all. I could never get there. Yeah, just to bring a bit of my own perspective and my reality, which is, you know, I'm a sex nerd, but I'm also so far from where you're at because I am in survival mode, and you know, I'm just trying to kind of get by. So
can I say a couple things about what you said?
Of course.
Hey, baby babes. Sorry to interrupt. I just had to pop my head into the lounge here and mention another virtual lounge that I'd love you to get around. It's the Labia Lounge Facebook group that I've created for listeners of the potty to mingle in. There you'll find extra bits and bobs like freebies, behind the scenes, or discounts for offerings from guests who have been interviewed on the podcast. There'll also be, hopefully, inspiring, thought-provoking conversations and support from a community of labial legends like yourself. My vision for this is that it becomes a really supportive, educational and hilarious resource for you to have more access to me and a safe space to ask questions you can't ask anywhere else. So head over to the links in the show notes or look up the Labia Lounge group in Facebook and I'll see you in there. And now, back to the episode.
Yeah, of course.
That's why I talked about 15 out of 100.
Yeah.
Because of the resources and the partner issues and, you know, a lot of things. The other thing is that time when you're raising your children, it's a really, really tough time to work on your sex life. You just have no fucking privacy. But after that, like your 40s, your 50s and your 60s. So if you're in the baby times right now, know that it won't last forever. I didn't even have my first orgasm from intercourse until I was 42. It's what got me into the business of sexuality. Wow. The only way I could come was with a vibrator on my clit. And I still had sex with my husband for 12 years and never had an orgasm until I was like, this is not good. We have to fix this. That's what set me on the journey. Was I knew there had to be more. And it took me no time at all to learn how to do it. And I was like, we need to teach everybody. But the other thing is, about, I want to bring in one more kind of cultural overlay to this. And that is that we are more and more in our cultures laboring under a capitalistic society where we aren't making enough money because the corporations are keeping all the money and not giving it to their employees. It's going to the top 1%, and they're not paying enough taxes on it here in America either. And so people aren't getting the education, the health care. It is just minimum wage is difficult. It's harder and harder and harder for people to make ends meet. So sex becomes a luxury. But think about this. When you are scrolling social media, when you are watching TV, when you are shopping online, when you are eating out at restaurants, when you are doing all of these other things, you're contributing your money and time to someone else's benefit and not getting an equal fair shake out. So when you go out to dinner and a movie instead of have sex, you're actually not making yourself healthier. You're making yourself sicker because you're eating crappy quality foods instead of eating home cooked foods, and you're not getting the oxytocin and the closeness and the hormone cascade and the neurotransmitter cascade and the grounding and the compassion and the love, because you're sitting next to each other in a chair and you're tapped into someone else's agenda for your time and money. And so a part of what people like Freya and I are doing is we're anarchists. We're opting out of corporate, utilization of our time and energy. And we're having healthy human connection instead. And so when you think I'm too under-resourced, part of what's creating the lack of resource can often be that there are still things taking away from you rather than fueling you. And your sexuality will fuel you. And we forget about that.
Yeah. And sex is free. We should just be fucking more instead of going to the movies. Or I love that. And another thing that popped into my mind was like, when you were talking about the child rearing years, just not being the best time to be trying to, optimize your sex life. Let's face it. I was thinking like it sucks, especially that we also have this, societal programming or this narrative that says like women peak sexually in their 30s and then it's all downhill and you're going to shrivel up and menopause. Oh my God, doom and gloom. And I've done a lot of episodes on menopause and on sex in later life and all of this. So like, hopefully my listeners are familiar with this concept, but I had a client the other day her kids are just sort of like late teenagers. They're just getting to the point where they're more independent and she's got more time and she's just like, finally I can work on this stuff. And she's come to work with me and I'm like, and I hear very frequently like, oh, I feel like I've missed the boat. I wasted time. I still haven't had an orgasm and I'm this age or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, babe, like the best is yet to come. You're literally at the prime time, because I truly believe that like there is so much to look forward to and you only really start having like the best sex you can ever have, like basically post-menopause, because also you give less fucks then. And there's no kids left to kind of, take your time and energy, and you've got the privacy and you can really just focus on you. So I think like if we, and it's, I just hate the way that our society looks at aging in general, as this like dreadful thing where your life is over, because like it honestly appeals so much to me, like to finally, not be in survival mode or child rearing and also that's great. But, I look at like, oh, imagine like when I'm kind of in my 60s, maybe I've retired, I can do all this like, hobby, I can do my hobbies, I can garden, I can kind of really focus on the stuff I want to focus on. I feel like that's when people sometimes really can come into their own. But because we have this like cultural or social narrative around aging, and it being kind of the beginning of the end once you retire and, that becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy for a lot of people. So yeah, more sex. Basically, I'm just going to try and bring it back because I haven't even looked at my questions. We've just been like meandering around and I love it. But to refocus us, I might just slot in the segment Get Pregnant and Die, and then I'll leap into some questions. But do you have a sex ed story that you'd like to share with us? Maybe how your sex ed failed you, maybe how your sex ed was great, maybe something you wanted to have learnt more about, any kind of anecdote that springs to mind about your sex ed.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Promise?
Oh, God. I don't know. Sex ed. What even is it? It's just propaganda and bullshit and fear mongering. I think generally all this, at least here in America, the sex ed we have is like, oh, semen, it's the devil, and just like, everything is wrong with sex ed for most people in our country, for sure. One of the things that funny, Nat Kringoudis and I don't know if you know her. She's Nat. She and I did a segment once on how to tell your kids about sex. That's really good. It's on my betterlover.com website. And just like her approach and my approach, and they were both different and equally good. And that was kind of fun. The different stages and ages and how you tell your kids about sex. I think that's really important. My mother always just answered all my questions. I was really lucky. She told me anything I needed to know or wanted to know. And she was always really open about it. So I was very lucky, but I would say that one of the things that I hear from people that is just like, if I had a nickel for every time I heard, I'd be a millionaire, is my parents never told me about sex. And they never really showed any affection. I'm not even sure if my parents ever even had sex. I just was really in the dark about it. And they hold on to that in kind of a victim mentality and real grudgy kind of way. And I say to them, nobody's parents told them about sex. Everyone's parents pretended they didn't have sex. Everybody's parents were having sex. And you need to get over that and let that go. It is not your parents' fault. Sex is for you to learn and you to figure out. And that's why you're literally here telling me that you're frustrated. So just start learning and let that shit go. This is why I'm not a therapist, right? Because I'd all be like, let that shit go. That if I have a t-shirt, that's what it is. Let that shit go, man. Like, move on. Just start learning. What do you want to know? That's the other reason that whole like 44 books and programs thing is because I'm a mass market person. I'm a mainstream brand, better lover. And so my customers are mainstream. What is mainstream? Heterosexual, monogamous. Of course, I love the sparkle rainbow. I'm a sparkle rainbow pony. But most people are heterosexual, monogamous, or serially monogamous, cisgendered people. And what do they want to know about? How do I eat a pussy? How do I suck a dick? How do I have an orgasm from intercourse? Like really basic stuff. Yeah. How do I ask for what I want in bed without my partner getting upset at me? Like the simplest stuff. And yet they come in all different ways through all different means into my, into the pachinko game that is my universe. And I try to meet them wherever they are, whatever they want to know. Like if they've got premature ejaculation or a bump on their dick or their labia or whatever it is, let's solve what's on your mind. And then let's figure out where you are and where you want to go. Like what's working, what's not working. What's your turn on? What's your fantasy? What's your ideal situation? What's your goal? Whatever. And then one of the things that I recently created, which I think is probably, something that I had to do what I do for decades to be able to create this. It's my sex life bucket list. It's at sexlifebucketlist.com. So your listeners could go there. That's a good link to put with this episode, sexlifebucketlist.com. You get a PDF and it comes with a video from me where you download this PDF and you can print it out and then you can watch the video solo or with your partner. It's good for both. And I walk you through 48 erotic play dates. Fun ideas for things you can do sexually. Nothing weird. There's no pooping on or peeing on or like grossy things. It's all like, like I'm just not into scat and stuff. But, and I don't think your average bear is, but, it basically helps you get a direction because sex is so vast. And like you said, we're sex nerds, but not everyone is. They just want to put one foot in front of the next and do the next thing that's going to serve their pleasure and growth well. And that's why I had to learn everything to be able to boil it down into these fun ideas that you could try. And some of them are sexual biohacking. Some of them are a little kinky. Some of them are more like a little dominant submissive, but they're all very sweet. You would not do this with your partner and get embarrassed. You would do this with your partner and go, I never even thought of that. Or we said we were going to try that and we never did. And then essentially what you do is you take A's, B's, and C's. A's are definitely going on my bucket list. B's are wouldn't be on my list, but if you want to do it, I'm doing it with you, of course. C's are, it's not for me right now. Never say never, because as you mature and you try new things, other things are going to become interesting to you. There is definitely an ascension model in your sexual growth. And so I think from everything that we've been talking about this whole conversation, we've talked about the cultural aspects of sexual repression and how the people who listen to your show are the people who are like, I'm in the 15%. I want more. What do I want? Where should I go? What should I do? That's the Sex Life Bucket List. That'll give you the answer for your next step, because it's individualized.
Beautiful. I love the A, B, and C. And I used to be like, before I started doing all this work, and part of the reason I started doing this work on myself personally first was because I was very like rigid and very like, nope, that's yuck. I don't like that. I'm never doing that. That's dirty. That's shameful. Whatever. That's, degrading to the woman. Like I was very, very rigid about what I would and wouldn't do and what I did and didn't like. And that was all just through the lens of shame. So it's been really cool to, over the years of being so dedicated to this sort of work for myself personally, and then also like professionally, how much that's changed and how much more open-minded I am. And I know that, is something that I'm not into now and can't possibly imagine being into, doesn't mean that's completely off the table forever. So I like that you put that caveat in there. I'm wondering like how, because so many people that I work with, when I kind of inquire like, okay, so you're not loving the sex you're having, you're not feeling satisfied. Do you know what you do like? Do you actually kind of have a good read on your desires and what you are aroused by? And so obviously like great sex, we're talking about how to have sustainably great sex forever for the rest of our lives. And that great sex really must be meeting our needs, safety, authentic expression, and fulfilling our desires. So I'm wondering like, is this, obviously the bucket list is one tool. How else do you help people unpack what they truly desire when it comes to physical intimacy? And maybe let's, also include like the not just the 15%, but the 85%, because I think I've got a mixture of listeners.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everything really starts with listening to your pussy. She's talking to you all the time. One of my girlfriends, Deborah Kagan, she's another sexpert in LA. I've known her for decades now. We kind of grew up in the space together. She'd be great to have on your show. If you want an intro, let me know.
Yeah, great.
She told me one time that the larynx, our throat, and the chords and the way that our throat makes sound looks spectacularly like our vulva. And so that one of the things that she wants to do is to remind women that both ends of our body speak. One can just make sounds and words, but the other can't. And so we have to use our larynx to speak for our yoni. And I think that for most women, because and you said this earlier, Freya, you were talking about how women are, feel like pleasure is indulging. That's that that puritanical perspective, or, we're supposed to be givers, not receivers, having trouble receiving, all of these kinds of things. And a lot of women, I know you've heard this. This is another one of those, if I had a nickel kinds of things in sex. It's, I don't know what I want. I just know what I'm getting isn't it. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the foundations, I think it's the foundation of all of my work, is a technique that I give away called the Sexual Soulmate Pact, PACT. And essentially, I learned this. I've been very lucky to have some incredible mentors in my life. The universe put me in the realm of some amazing sexual educators, and they have said, I will teach you my things. I want you to carry these forward. And one of them is Dr. Patty Taylor, and she is from the Moore University sex cult, basically, out of which things like orgasmic meditation came, which is called deliberate massive orgasm. And she taught me this technique. I called it the Sexual Soulmate Pact because I have a best-selling book called Sexual Soulmates, The 6 Essentials of Connected Sex. And it's one of the 6 essentials. And I would say it is the essential. And I wrote that book after over a decade of being in this business, and a million people asking me questions and me giving them ideas of what to do. And then they would tell me how things were going, and I would see what was working and what wasn't, and what was missing and what they needed. And I boiled it all down to these 6 essentials. And the very first one is this notion of this agreement between lovers that allows both of you to hear whatever your partner needs to say, and to hear it in a way that you don't take it personally or like it was your failing. You don't contract. You actually want it. You love them to tell you what they want, what they need, what they're feeling, what's too much, their ideas, everything and anything. That sex no longer is this quiet thing that is done with, genitals rubbing together. And instead it's this free spirited dialogue and, movement and pleasure and all of these things. And the Sexual Soulmate Pact, which you can get at sexualsoulmatepact.com, really gives you the setup for creating this agreement with your partner where you're going to be able to speak from these upper lips, whatever your lower lips are telling you. And when women say, I don't know what I want, they do. They're just not listening. And so it teaches you how to begin listening using what's called interoception. It's one of our senses. It's that sense of what you're feeling in your body. Like, when you have to fart, when you've got a hangnail, when you've got acid indigestion, when you're getting your period, all these things. And so you have interoception. You just have to bring it into your sexuality. And then you have to have the conditions with your partner where you feel really comfortable saying anything and everything about what you need and want and what your desires are. And pretty soon you start tapping into your body's desires in a way that expands your pleasure. All of a sudden, your body's telling you, you know what would really feel good to me right now? Like, I'll give you an example. 2 nights ago, I had a date with my boyfriend. And I said to him, we had gone for a bike ride and we'd come back and we'd taken a shower. And my bedroom, you noticed how sunny it is here. When we first got on, you were like, oh, it's so sunny there. My bedroom is on this same wall with this studio in my house. And the light was streaming in on my bed. And it was a beautiful afternoon, a warm, sunny afternoon. And I said to him, I would like to lay down in the sunshine. And I was wondering if the first thing that you did was put a little bit of this pain cream on. I had worn a bikini that was lower than the other bikini, and I had a little sunburned crescent moons on my boobs and on my belly. I said, can you put some pain cream on my boobs and my belly? And he goes, sure. And then I said, could you rub this butter? I love this certain body butter that's like all natural. It has no gunk in it. I said, could you rub this butter into my thighs and my shins and all on my arms and chest? Sure, baby, I can do that. And then I said, okay, can you rub some of this Awaken Arousal oil on my yoni? Do it all the way to the edges, my groin to groin, all across my mons, down to my perineum, but it's not lube, it's an arousal oil. So just put a coating on my whole outer labia, my little labia. Don't go into my vestibule, just our outer area. Sure, baby. How's this? Is this enough? Do you want a little more? No, that's perfect. And I said, okay, now could you take this breast oil and I held my boobs up, and I squeezed them up because they practically hang in my armpits these days. They're better to dangle in their mouths. That's what I say. And I held my boobs up like this, and he dribbled the oil on my nipples, and then I kept holding, so he put a little more on there. And then he started playing with my nipples. It feels so good with that oil. I'm just like, oh God, it just feels so good. And we started kissing just a little, just little tiny kisses. It was really sweet. And then pretty soon I was getting really turned on, and like I stuck my hand at the back of his neck up in his hair, and I grabbed his hair and I pulled him toward me, and I put my hands on his big biceps, and I was squeezing his biceps and pulling him toward me and jamming my tongue down his throat. And he was giving me nipple gasms, and, and it was like so nice that I just asked for what I wanted. And I didn't even know that's what I wanted till I was about ready to lie down there on the bed. And I was like, mommy needs to get buttered. I just wanted to be like, I wanted to have all the right things in the right places. And it just felt so relaxing. And I said to him, how was that for you? And he said, oh, I absolutely loved it. He said, there was no performance required. You told me exactly what you wanted. It was so relaxing for me. I loved just lying in the sunshine and cuddling and connecting. And it was so sexy. And I loved feeling how turned on you got and how you were just like kind of grabbing me. And I love your like athleticism and your, just your willingness to just be like really turned on. And I thought to myself, that's actually a good story. That's a good example of, I didn't know what I wanted till I knew it. I asked for it. He had no trouble taking a lot of very specific direction it didn't make him feel bad. He freaking loved it. We had a super good time. And so I think just hearing stories like that might give other people ideas of how they might show up in their own desire, whatever it is. Because that was my rando little thing I wanted that I'd never done before that sounded good that day.
Yeah. Amazing. I love it. It's so challenging for so many people to ask for what they want, and often, it might not be received as receptively as your husband, that direction. But I mean, I've got a lot of episodes on communicating in the bedroom and giving and receiving feedback, so people can listen to those. But I think you've just really got to prioritize either creating that within the relationship, that ability to communicate, or you need to find a new partner, because how are you supposed to, follow your pussy and follow your desire and follow your pleasure and ask for what you want in the moment if you're with someone that's not willing to participate and to be okay with you giving guidance,
Well, I had a boyfriend once who was like, big, dumb, stubborn donkey. I really liked having sex with him, but God, was he a stubborn, dumbass donkey. And it took me a long time. It was like flogging a beast to get him to learn that when I made a request, he needed to positively acknowledge it. And I don't think that a lot of women feel like they want to do that. But it's worth it, because even big stubborn oxes can be trained. And so, you know how when you have to tell your kids like 1,274 million times to pick their shit up off the floor or to close the refrigerator door or whatever, and you do it because you know ultimately they're going to grow up and they'll actually be tidy or have a refrigerator or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you do it over and over and over again because you know that's just how it is. Sometimes you're going to be in a relationship with a big ox and you still love them. Don't give up on them. Just think about them. Just think about them like that kid, like it's your kid and you're training them. My mentor, Dr. Patty Taylor, said, you're always training your partners, whether you're doing it explicitly or implicitly. Implicit is you just let them get away with shit, and then they know you've trained them that they can just get away with shit. Explicit is, no, I really need you to say, thank you. Got it, baby. How's this? Tell me more. I need the encouragement so that I'm willing to open up to you and keep telling you what I need so you can give me the incredible pleasure I know you want to give me. And I'm a woman who runs with the moon. And so it's different every day. How could you know? You can't. It's not your fault. Let me help you by thanking me when I tell you. And that stubborn ox learned the skill. It took him a long time, but he finally did. And then things were great. So, maybe you need to get rid of them. Maybe not. It depends. It depends on whether you really like having sex with that ox or not.
Totally. It depends. Yeah. Depends how many other boxes they're ticking, I suppose, whether it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because some people
What's the
don't want to
ox
sign
box
off that
report
project.
card?
Yeah. So like I know, so for me, generally I'm trying to, remind people that it's just as much, if not more, about communication skills and rapport and trust and safety and all the other things as much as it is about physical techniques. But I know that you also have a lot of physical techniques that you teach. So I'm curious to hear what a couple of your favorites are that might feel like most widely applicable and kind of consistently effective. It's very tricky because I'm always hesitant to give physical techniques. So often what works for one woman won't work for another, or what works one day of your cycle won't work on another day. So it's tricky to kind of give techniques that are going to be, helpful or applicable for like a lot of people. But do you have any that, if we're looking at giving people some tools to have great sex for life, which is your kind of whole MO, what are your go-to physical techniques that you like to teach people about?
Excuse this quick interruption. I'm shamelessly seeking reviews and 5-star ratings for the potty because, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, it's pretty fab, and the more people who get to hear it, the more people I can help with it. Reviews and ratings actually do make a big difference to this little independent podcaster. And it's really easy to just quickly show your support by taking that simple act of either leaving 5 stars for the show on Spotify, or even better, writing a written review and leaving 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts. Or if you're a real overachiever, you can do them both. That would be mad. If you're writing a review, though, just be sure to use G-rated words, because despite the fact that this is a podcast about sexuality, words like sex can be censored and your review won't make it through the gates. Lame. Anyway, I would personally recommend doing that right now while you remember, just to get on top of it and let me know you're with me on this journey. Thanks, gang. Enjoy the rest of the epi.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the stable three-legged stool of a great sex life is bedroom communication, sexual techniques, understanding pleasure skills, and intimate wellness. right? Keeping the parts working. That makes a solid foundation, those three things. And they're all equally important. You can't have one without the other. They all go together. But a lot of men are driven to get sex techniques. They want to give her, they want to make her come, like that's where women are much more like, I need to be able to tell them what I need, but everything meets in the middle, which is good. I think probably orgasmic intercourse is a place where, because most people are in, heterosexual pair bonds, that so many women struggle to have orgasms from intercourse because the men are basically fucking us like they see on porn, and porn is not passionate lovemaking, and porn is not created to pleasure a vagina. It's created to pleasure a penis. And so, the old in and out, I think that is where a lot of relationships get ruined because they rush to intercourse because they think that's what sex is. And that comes from religion, which is sex is for procreation only. So the only thing that matters is intercourse. When in reality, all of the other things are sex too. And they're the things that, with an arousal cycle of 20 to 30 minutes for a woman to achieve her clitoral erection before things really feel good, sex is long over, and the ox has been eating a sandwich for the last 10 minutes. And she's like, well, I've been doing this for 12 years. I think I want a divorce, and he's like, a divorce? What are you talking about? And you're like, well, I've been complaining for 12 years. Well, what are you doing? It's like, these are the things that play out. And so, I was just talking to a guy and he's like, my wife filed divorce, and I'm shocked. And I'm like, I bet you are. But, she's not shocked. She's been bitching about this for decades, So I think orgasmic intercourse, where both parties learn what a vagina needs to have orgasms, and that the clitoral structures wrap around the vagina. And that the vagina doesn't necessarily want friction as its prime strategy for orgasm, and that women aren't broken because they're not having orgasms, that orgasms from intercourse are simply one of the 20 kinds of orgasms your body can learn how to have using orgasmic activation, so that you awaken the mind, vulva, vagina connection. And I have a dozen techniques at orgasmicintercourse.com, where I just basically, what you get is links to all the techniques that I've written. They're all free. It's all free. That I think really helps, because there are techniques for him, like the heart tongue method. And there are techniques for her, like another good one I like is called glissando. Techniques for her, including crouching tiger, bouncing lion, and some other.
Are you able to describe any that, because so many people, are going to listen to the podcast in the car, and then they're going to forget to chase up and look at
which
these.
One do you want me to say?
I'd love to be able to, well, I guess one that you one of your favorites that you think would be most kind of enjoyable or applicable for most listeners who are women. Yeah.
Probably glissando's a nice one, because basically, when guys think about having intercourse with women, they think that their job is to plunge their penis in and out. And so it's like a piston. And I like them to, and usually they're very tight. Their hips are tight. And so, we've all seen the meme of the guy on the internet who's got this wonderful hip drop, and he's got these swivelly hips, and it just looks like he would be so incredible in bed, because the way he's moving his pelvis, and it's rocking in this wonderful way. And it looks like it would probably just hit your G-spot just right. And you know, like that kind of thing. And then you think about, your ox, and he's going boom, 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 boom. That's kind of the difference. And so what glissando does, it works really well in doggy position, doggy style, him behind her, she's on her knees, where instead of him going into her with his pelvis, he's actually rocking her on his penis. So he can slide her up and down the length of his penis and give her short little strokes and then some long, deep strokes. Toggling between shallow and deep really helps toggle the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in a way that the vagina finds particularly pleasurable. Also, over time, as you age, you'll often find that you like it a little deeper and deeper and deeper as you age. Things kind of open up in there and you get more used to it and you're a little less afraid of a depth of sensation, and that can feed into kind of what women often call the cervical orgasms and things like that. But you're actually going beyond the cervix. The cervix isn't at the very end of the canal. It's about 3/4 of the way down. And so that deep space back there is very nice, but it doesn't want a constant hammering. It wants some awareness and a little bit of stimulation and not just constant. And so I think Glissando's nice because it gives a guy an opportunity to think about shallow versus deep and about a very smooth kind of an approach to intercourse, where once he's got your hips and he can kind of glide you on him, he can actually be more soft and gentle and fluid with the way that he's stroking you than when he's just trying to do it with his pelvic thrusts. So that would be one example where, and also of course, communication super helpful during this time. If you want more shallow or more deep, or you like the real long slides, do that some more. Go back to that thing. Oh, that feels good. Keep doing it till I say stop. And then giving women a real kind of like, you can do it, girl. You can do it for cowgirl. Getting her up on top of him and having her slide down and control all the movement, where she can do grinding deep into him, or she can do sliding and go back and forth between those things. The more she does that, the more she'll be able to say, oh, this is what my pussy wants right now, and just do that. And she'll learn a series of techniques that allow her to stroke herself with his penis in different ways. And she'll develop stamina in her legs and her butt muscles that'll make it better for her. And he can play with her breasts and her nipples and kiss her and tell her how beautiful she is and adore her while she's taking her pleasure on him. So things like that tend to really help women have better orgasmic response.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's really helpful and practical in terms of like a bit of guidance to give people to try. And it always breaks my heart when, and I hear it a fair bit actually, when women don't feel comfortable being on top and they feel really, awkward and self-conscious about being on top. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my favorite position. That's when I can do exactly what I want and control the depth and the pace and the motion. And, it sort of lends itself to a lot of pleasure, and you can get all of the, the internal structures as well as the external parts of like the clitoris involved all in the one position. So it's kind of like when women aren't comfortable doing it, I just feel like they're being robbed because it's this self-consciousness and it's this like discomfort with following their own pleasure and like taking their pleasure that they're not used to. But I think it's such a good thing to just practice getting more and more comfortable with. And if you have to do it with the lights off to begin with, then like do that. But honestly, just give it a go and practice it, because once you get over that discomfort and awkwardness and the self-consciousness, it's definitely a really amazing way to like learn what your body likes and how to follow the pleasure by adapting what you're doing, rather than kind of just like, you know, trying to receive what the guy's doing and like trying to get into it or trying to guide him. Like that's possible, but it's a bit of a shortcut if you can just like jump on top and kind of like figure it out yourself, you know?
Yeah. You get better and better at it. At first you're like, I don't know what I'm doing up here and I don't know how to get myself off. And then pretty soon you're like, oh, I like that. I'll do that some more. Then you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Okay, I'm feeling a little aggro. Oh, that feels good. You know, and like it just stacks up after a while and you get really good. You know what? My favorite things to do is I love to get on my husband and straddle him after he's given me like an incredible yoni massage and he's made me come 37 different times and he's stroking my G spot. And, you know, it's just like all like, my pussy's all like engorged and everything. And he loves me to tell him a dirty story while I ride him. He's very auditory in his, you know, turn on. And so I'll get on top of him and I'll just bring him, peek him and peek him and peek him, take him right to the edge, right to the edge, right to the edge, right to the edge, tell him the dirtiest story I can think of. And like bonus points for it being like disgustingly dirty. That's what he loves. And it's so funny because I've gotten really good at it over the years. You know, at first I didn't even know what to say. And now I'm pretty good at making up some crazy shit. And it's just fantasy. It doesn't mean anything, you know. I mean, sometimes it's like there's 3 cheerleaders involved. I mean, it's, you know, ridiculous stuff that he's going to enjoy. And I just love to just have him lie there and just have him just like feel so good over and over and over again. You know, it's just so, it makes me feel great to be able to do that. It's very empowering. And I just learned how to do it. Like everything we do in life, you just got to practice it until you feel like you've got mastery. And it's not that hard and it comes pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing getting in the way is feeling self-conscious and sort of feeling that performance anxiety. And also just, I mean, the biggest tips that I've been, it's funny because sometimes I'll get a real, you know, influx or a kind of batch of clients one after the other that all seem to be kind of having a difficulty with the similar thing or needing the same kind of advice. And lately it's been teaching them how to not give any fucks about other people and actually just following their own pleasure, because we're robbing ourselves of pleasure when we're preoccupied and distracted by mental chatter about what the other person's thinking, how we can be, you know, pleasing them more. And these are women, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to please your partner, but these are women that haven't learned how to please themselves yet, because they've always been so preoccupied with the man that they're with, and how to please him or what he's thinking or what, you know, what she's looking like. And so, yeah, my biggest kind of takeaways for these clients lately have been, you know, really learning to follow their own pleasure and listening to their body, and not caring as much about what the other person thinks. He's going to be fucking enjoying himself regardless, especially if you are following your pleasure. Like that is hot.
For sure.
And yeah, it's so empowering once you've got that piece down pat. And then of course you can, you know, refocus on like following your own pleasure and not giving any fucks while also optimizing what you can do to please your partner and create more and more enjoyment for both of you. But your little story then just reminded me, we've got to squeeze in the segment TMI.
TMI, we love it. TMI, we love it.
Even though this whole episode's basically been TMI, but this is a little segment where I ask.
What do you mean this segment's been TMI?
Well, TMI, you know, for general dinner table talk among manies, normcore people, it would be considered, oh, that's a bit too much information. Don't tell me about how you're talking about a dirty story while you're riding your husband's cock. So, you know, everything we talk about has been pretty TMI.
Where are you having dinner? Who are you eating with?
But I'd love to grab another story from you. And there's something that piqued my curiosity that I saw briefly in maybe one of your Instagram stories. And you don't have to talk about this, but I thought it could be a good topic for TMI. Are you in a throuple?
Yeah, I am in a throuple.
All right. Nice.
Yeah, 2 men.
Do you
my
feel
husband
like
of 32 years and my boyfriend of 3.5 years. Yeah, it's really
amazing?
nice.
So,
I don't talk about it that much because I was recently on a couple of poly podcasts, and they wanted me to talk about it. And they wanted me to talk about, like, what are the problems, And we've had an open relationship for decades. And so we've had many problems. In addition to
a lot to navigate.
I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of threesomes with my partners. I really love to have sex with more than one person at a time. It's really fun for me. But I don't talk about it a lot because I don't want people to think that that's any expectation that I have or recommendation that I have for them. Most people are blissfully, heterosexual, monogamous, and that is perfect for them. And so I don't share it to say that I recommend it. I really don't. It's just what suits us. We love it. And my 27-year-old daughter loves my boyfriend, and he loves her, and we're a family. We're just that kind of what is called kitchen table poly. And it just works really well for all of us for all kinds of reasons. And those guys are incredible in bed, and they give me so much pleasure, and I have so much fun with them. One of the things we did a couple weekends ago, we went to Carl's house. Tim and I did. He wanted to make us pizzas in his new oven, gluten-free for me because I'm a gluten-free girl. And I have to. I'm a celiac. And it was so cute because you are? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it was so cute because I wore a sexy outfit and high heels, so I'd look really cute. And I said, you know what I really want? I want an adoration party. I would like to just stand up here in front of you guys sitting down there on the couch. And I would like you to just tell me everything you love about me, how sexy I am, how smart I am, how creative I am, how beautiful I am. And I want specifics.
Fuck yeah, specifics. Gotta be specifics. This sounds like my dream, honestly. Pour on the validation and compliments, please.
Yes, we need that. As women, we want to be adored and found sexually irresistible in equal measure. And men, they want to be respected for doing a good job. They want to win and be respected. We're different. And so, and those are generalities. We're all across the spectrum. Sprinkle the sparkle rainbow into that sentence however you choose. But those are reasonable generalities. And I enjoyed that so much. They just went on and on and on. And then we went into the bedroom and had a fabulous threesome. That was my, my warm up, my foreplay, my oral pleasure.
Totally. Oh my God. I love your life. You are killing it, babe. So good.
Thank you, precious.
Hey, me again. If you'd like to support the potty and you've already given it 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on, I want to mention that you can buy some really dope merch from the website and get yourself a Labia Lounge tote, tee, togs. Yep, you heard that right. I even have Labia Lounge bathers. Or a cute fanny pack if that'd blow your hair back. So if fashion isn't your passion, though, you can donate to my Buy Me a Coffee donation page, which is actually called Buy Me a Soy Chai Latte, because I'll be the first to admit I'm a bit of a Melbourne cafe tosser like that. And yes, that is my coffee order. You can do a once-off donation or an ongoing membership and sponsor me for as little as 3 fat ones a month. And I also offer one-on-one coaching and online courses that'll help you level up your sex life and relationship with yourself and others in a really big way. So every bit helps because it ain't cheap to put out a sweet podcast into the world every week out of my own pocket. So I will be undyingly grateful if you support me and my biz financially in any of these ways. And if you like, I'll even give you a mental BJ with my mind from the lounge itself. Saucy. And I'll pop the links in the show notes. Thank you. Later.
So I know we've gone a little bit over time. I'm just conscious of it taking up too much more of your time.
Yeah.
Is there anything you kind of want to leave us with? I had another kind of question around relationship values.
because I thought that's obviously quite important for having amazing sex. You know, you can have all the techniques and the communication skills you want, but,
Yeah.
you know, without alignment in terms of your values, that might be tricky to have ongoing great sex. Is there anything you want to say on that, or anything you want to leave our listeners with in terms of pointing them in the right direction to have amazing sex for the rest of their lives?
I really feel like we've given so much that I'm conscious about overwhelming people. I think the relationship values piece is something we could save for another segment. It is more relationship oriented than sex oriented, and it takes a bit to get into. But it's really just about uncovering what it is you want out of the relationship and telling your partner exactly what you want so they can give it to you and they don't have to guess, because they're basically treating you the way they want to be treated because they don't know how you want to be treated, and vice versa. And so I do think that the bedroom can't be great until outside the bedroom is. And so that's what relationship values are. It's a book called Relationship Magic. It's at myrelationshipmagic.com. You can buy it on Amazon, but frankly, it's $27 there and it's only $9.95 at myrelationshipmagic.com. It's a PDF workbook. So if you are feeling like, well, I want to have all this great sex, but things are a little rocky outside the relationship, I'm not 100% happy, start with myrelationshipmagic.com. And I think that's a good place for you to go. But I think the recap is the Sexual Soulmate Pact is going to help you know what you want and ask for it, and your partner love that you did, you know, like the rub this oil on here and put this one on there and put the butter here. It's, you know, like, what do you want? You want an adoration party, baby? Let's get you one, you know? So I think the Sexual Soulmate Pact is very important. And then I think also just like, okay, what's the next step for me in my sex life? I am one of those 15%, which I call sexual seekers. I'm a sexual seeker. I want to be 96 and having orgasms till the day I die, like Susan Bratton and Frey Graf. And so your next step would be the sex life bucket list. And I think that's, you know, just a good next step for you. And when if you do go download any of those things, you'll get my email newsletter. I spend about 30 hours a week working on those fucking things. I pour my heart and soul into them. And I'm constantly giving you new things. 5 days a week, you get an email from me with one really good sex tip and a bunch of interesting things. And when you do, if you have a question for me, just hit reply. I literally get it myself. I have a customer care team. I've got a team of close to 20 people in my company. I've been doing this for decades. But I get the replies to the emails. And so you can ask me, it doesn't matter what email you get, you can just reply and ask me anything. It's what has made me good over all these years of understanding all of the things everyone is dealing with and what I can tell you is the next step to help you. So I'm happy to send you, you know, to various things I've done so you can access them. So I'm here for you for that as well. And I love hearing from all of my fans and followers. And it is my joy to be in service to you. And I hope that something that I've said today has helped you. And Freya, I have really enjoyed our conversation. You are charming, intelligent, worldly, wise, beautiful, kind. I've had a really nice time with you, and I'm glad to develop a friendship with you. And I hope that we'll have many more chances to work together in various ways, and I'd love to keep you close. So thank you so much for having me.
Les, there's my little adoration shower. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Beautiful. Oh, well, it's been such a pleasure to chat. I love how celestial you look with that sunlight just beaming down on your blonde hair right now. I'm just like, wow, far out. Yeah, awesome. I'll pop all your links in the show notes, and that's it. That's a wrap. Thanks for sticking with us for a long one, everyone.
And that's it, darling hearts. Thanks for stopping by the Labia Lounge. Your bum groove in the couch will be right where you left it, just waiting for you to sink back in for some more double L action next time. If you'd be a dear and subscribe, share this episode, or leave a review on iTunes, then you can pat yourself on the snatch, because that's a downright act of sex-positive feminist activism, and you'd be supporting my vision to educate, empower, demystify, and destigmatize with this here podcast. I'm also always open to feedback, topic ideas that you'd love to hear covered, questions or guest suggestions, so feel free to get in touch via my website or over on Insta. You can also send me in TMI stories to be shared anonymously on the pod. My handle is FreyaGraf_the Labia Lounge, if my account hasn't been deleted for being too sex positive, which, is always a possibility with censorship. But just in case the chronic censorship finally does obliterate my social channels, I'd highly recommend going and joining my mailing list and snagging yourself some fun freebies for the trouble at www.freyagraf.com/freebies. Anyway, later, labial legends. See you next time.